Obviously. All right, so Jason, this afternoon and evening has been a bumpy ride to get to where we are, but we appreciate you taking the time. If you don't know who this gentleman is sitting next to me, I will give him the opportunity to introduce himself. Why don't you give like the 10-second flyover of who you are?
I'm Jason Widen. I'm co-founder of HQ Raleigh, as well as Think House.
That was I said 10 seconds. You nailed it. All right. So Jason and I have something in common. We both spent a decent amount of time up in Indiana, and when I moved down here about 3 years ago, Jason had also just moved down here. So can you kind of tell us your journey that got you, like I guess for the past several years, like what brought you down to this Raleigh area?
Absolutely. So
try to talk as close to the mic as you can possibly.
All right. He told me this was too hot and too loud, so now I know. Yeah, so I think, although I didn't know it at the time, I think most of my life has been a lean startup. So a little bit of context, supposedly your 20s is a time to learn and test things. Your 30s is a time to perfect a craft and become an expert. And your 40s is a time to really do what the hell you want to do. And I pretty much have followed that path. So my 20s, I started my first company at 23. Actually, I was part of 4 companies during my 20s. I had some failures, I had some successes. 2 of those companies still exist today. My 30s, I became an expert in real estate development and entrepreneurial community building, social entrepreneurial community building, I like to think. And I'm in my 40s now, and I'm doing what the hell I want to do, which is I'm a part of, as I mentioned, I'm the co-founder of HQ Raleigh and Think House, and I'm passionate about building entrepreneurial communities. To Will's question, back in 2011, I sold a company, I owned a real estate investment firm, among other things. I was living in a small college town in Indiana, Bloomington, Indiana, and I sold that company, and my wife and I were looking for a place to move. And on our way to Denver, we stopped off in this place called the Triangle. We were here over a 3-day weekend. There was a short-term let at American Tobacco. We decided to check it out for 3 months. We were so impressed in that 3-day period, and we never left. So it says a lot about the community. I was pretty purposeful in getting connected early on to both City Ford and Christopher Gergen, who many of you know. And I really kept my head up, and I jumped in with both feet to get involved in a community. And I stumbled across an amazing group of partners, and Jesse Lipson, which is the co-founder of Share Files, one of co-founders of HQ, Brooks Bell, who's married to Jesse and also a successful entrepreneur herself, and Christopher Gergen. It's one of these things where you keep your head up and you look for opportunities and you find success. And if anybody has a chance to read a book, it's called Luck. And I never believed in luck until recently meaning the last 3 years. And this book talks about basically what this guy did over a period of time. He did a bunch of conferences. He would put $100 bills on the ceiling at every conference that he went to. And after the conference, he would ask the group of attendees, one of the survey questions would be, who saw the $100 bill? And those people that saw the $100 bill, he would catalog those people and reach back out to them later on. He did this research over a period of about 10 years. He found that the people that saw the $100 bill were those that were the most successful in life, and many of them went on to be successful business people and entrepreneurs. I'm one of those people. I feel like a lot of my success over time has been I've always got my head up and looking for opportunities, and and I think I've found that in the Triangle and working with HQ and some of the other things I'm doing.
So let's talk about HQ. So that idea really wasn't formed to kind of what it was supposed to be today. Today you've got thousands of square feet, hundreds of people coming in and out of there, but that really wasn't the original idea for HQ. I think it came out of like an Innovate Raleigh that there was a need for kind of a space for teams that were scaling, but more like a cool companies behind the Brooks Bell space, maybe 10, 15 companies at max that had a couple people that were scaling. Can you kind of talk about like the path of where HQ, the idea came from, and then, it's kind of pivoted, to use that term, to where it is today?
It's back to this idea of keeping your heads up and looking for opportunity. I mean, selfishly, frankly, I did HQ because I knew that I was getting involved with some serious players in the community. I mean, who wouldn't want to partner on a company with Jesse Lipson and Brooks Bell and Christopher Gergen? In doing so, though, as Will mentioned, we thought it maybe 10 to 15 companies. I was going to start another startup and be associated with these people that would help, enhance my brand and my connections. Within 45 days of us starting HQ, we had over 500 people communicate with us in a very short period of time. And that triggered to me that HQ is much bigger than a small co-working space with maybe 10 to 15 entrepreneurs. And so we're very purposeful and intentional about, I went back to our, the other group of founders and I said, I think this is something much bigger, and I think we can work to help catalyze the community as a whole, and what do you guys think? And so everybody bought into it, and so we went from this very insular kind of incubator type of approach to being very open-minded and wanting to build a community of entrepreneurs. And I'm really proud of what we've accomplished. It's not just HQ. I mean, there's a ton of people in this room and a ton of people in the community that contributed to that. But I think we've been a big contributor, and it says a lot about the community. By the way, back to Innovate Raleigh, I mean, this was the community that said, hey, we need this in Raleigh to help seed and catalyze entrepreneurship and innovation. This came from that community, from the 350 people that attended the original Innovation Summit. And we've just kind of ridden that wave and been very smart about doing that. We provide flexible and affordable space. We connect people, we communicate success stories. We're people architects, and we make sure that we're putting people in the right situations. We're bringing resources to bear, but ultimately, it's people like Will and Jay and the community that are the ones that are introducing a lot of the really cool things that are happening. We're happy to be a part of it.
So one of the Mr. America questions was, is it product, market, or team? And I think the obvious answer is team. Can you kind of talk about, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but the two that left and didn't even stay to hear you.
My team bailed on me.
But can you kind of talk about the team that's really been there almost, I guess, since day one, like Liz and Allison, and kind of how that's helped HQ basically explode further than probably what you could take it on your own?
Well, looking around the crowd, I know a lot of you guys know those two, and I'm I can't, I definitely try not to take a lot of credit because I've got an amazing team. Oftentimes I'm asked, what's your secret sauce? And, the first thing is you got to have a really cool, sexy space. I think we've done that. Second thing is you got to have a really cool team. You've got to have a team that understands community and community building and really cares and is passionate about what they're doing. I think we've accomplished that. And the third is you've got to have a vibrant community of people, whether it's Lewis Sheets and the Poole College Management through NC State, or Duke, or Verge, or other organizations within the community that really want to collaborate and work together to grow the community. I think if you have those three things, you can be successful. And like I said, we're riding a pretty good wave right now, and it continues. Momentum continues to build, and I'm excited about it.
So, just two more HQ questions, and then we'll get off the HQ topic. But what's the future look like for you guys? You guys are growing, you're expanded, you're in Greensboro now. Like, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Sure. Yeah, I was a little bit worried in talking tonight again because I see a lot of familiar faces, and you've all heard me say a lot of the same things. So, I didn't want to bore you, but we do have some exciting things on the forefront. Again, back to our, what our original vision was, I don't think we ever had any aspirations to be more than sustainable and impactful in Raleigh. And that's really changed over the last 6 months. Our mission is to help to foster inclusive, high-impact, high-growth entrepreneurs, right? Our vision now is to do that on a regional level. We want to be the largest inclusive entrepreneurial community builder in the Southeast. We're embarking on a 43,000 square foot state-of-the-art signature building in Raleigh. We've just expanded into Greensboro. It's more of an innovative manufacturing type of play we're doing there in partnership with UCNG and a really sharp group there. We've got several cities that have reached out to us and are really curious as to the community building approach that we've taken. So we're off to the races. A lot of you haven't seen me around HQ as much, and it's because I'm in the process of raising a bunch of $1 million to build a big building and doing a lot of feasibility studies on these new communities. But we're definitely, the business model is there, and you look to see us all over the region here shortly.
All right, so this is more of a community question. What do you think makes this area, not just Raleigh, but Triangle as a whole, Durham, Cary, RTP, all of this together? What do you think, what's the recipe for success there that makes this community so great?
I love this question, and I'll give you guys a recent example. We just had Julie Holes, I believe, from the Technology Council in Austin, Texas, came to do a visit to the Triangle. And I got to meet her on the last day that she was here. And she was pretty sincere when she was talking about the things that she discovered while touring around and meeting many of the leaders throughout the Triangle. And she was just blown away by the level of collaboration between people and the respect that different organizations had for one another. I think that's our calling card. I don't know whether it's the Southern charm with the sophistication of different people that have transplanted here or whatever it is, but that's the reason why I didn't go to Denver and I stayed here, because over those 3 days when I was first here, I had so many people throw their doors open to me and said, "Hey man, jump on our train. We're gonna make this happen." We shouldn't lose that, because it definitely woke her up. I mean, she was talking about the Capital Factory. She was in HQ, and the first thing she said to me, "I've never seen this kind of buzz." It happened to be a really cool day there too. We have buzz all the time, but she said, I don't get this sense. I don't get this feeling in the Capital Factory, which is like a national leader in entrepreneurial workspaces and community. We got a lot of work to do, but but over and over she kept talking about our openness to collaboration and working together, and I don't know, it says a lot. Oh, the other thing she mentioned, and I see Lewis back there, University of Texas does nothing with the local community. There's like a huge wall, right? And the universities have bought into that. So that's a huge strength. We've got these major institutions that are embracing this in Durham and Raleigh and all around. So, those two things are major strengths.
All right, so since this is called a fireside chat, I'm gonna have to turn up the seat just a little bit, temperature-wise. What do you think is lacking in this community in terms of, I think we're doing a pretty good job, and we're in, I would say, like a pretty brisk jog. But what's kind of holding us back from an all-out sprint to get to the next level?
I think a lot of people would talk about funding and VC and all that stuff, but I don't know. There's probably every state other than Boston and Silicon Valley. I know Silicon Valley isn't a state, say California. But other than those two states would say that's a problem. So I'm not going to go there. To me, it's about building a culture of entrepreneurship, and I get a little bit worried that we'll rest on our laurels that Raleigh is and the Triangle and Durham is the coolest place to retire and be, and our community leaders don't get the fact that we're competing with some communities that are doing some pretty cool stuff. Iowa City, Iowa, I was there recently. There's some freaking killer stuff. A lot of communities are copying what other people are doing. I talked about Austin and some of these other communities. So let's don't think because we've been in a handful of publications and we're supposed to be this great community that we're going to be that great community. There is a ton of work to do, and if I see one more apartment building that I see in 20 other cities, I'm going to throw up. I mean, why do we have these Texas developers come in and just throw numbers on the side of a building and call that creative? It's really annoying. So let's keep a creative flair. Let's do some cool stuff in this city. You know what I mean? Vote Matt Tomaluso and Marianne Baldwin. Let's just not open our doors to these huge corporate people that come in and make us like every other freaking city, right? I mean, we've got a lot of momentum. A lot of people are paying attention. The warehouse district's gonna be freaking cool. You can personally shoot me if our new building is boring. I'm telling you that right now.
Everything's filmed, so that's on record.
Okay.
So we're good.
Yeah, that's scary.
Like I said, we are on
Excuse my
film,
language.
so then we're going to have to edit. No, it's fine. We'll edit it out. Don't worry. All right, so just a few more, and then I'll let you off the hot seat. Okay, so if HQ wasn't enough, HQ Raleigh wasn't enough, all the initiatives that you guys have going on, Think House, Innovate Raleigh that you're a part of, everything that's going on there, you started a new company. And what the heck are you thinking? Like, tell us about Rev Gen and what was the passion behind that and the reason for starting a company with all this other stuff going on that you have?
Because I sold a company 4 years ago. I wasn't making any money for 4 years. And
You got to make money.
And I needed to start a company that was generating revenue.
So what is Rev Gen?
So, in all seriousness, though, I do get paid from HQ. It's not a large salary. I do get paid, and that's my passion. And Rev Gen was a way for me to invest in a company that had a pretty good return. Really happy with it, and I can continue my passions. As HQ scales and grow, I'm in a good place. So Rev Gen, basically what we do is we train young tech salespeople, and they do lead generation as their training to work in the tech sales world. So we work with companies like Citrix, and we help them through lead generation, and we're moving into some other areas with data mining and those kind of things to help lead generation and sales. And in a very short period of time, we're profitable, no debt, really happy.
That's awesome. All right, so I've lost where I was going to go with this, but you're like me. You suffer from FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and you have a little tendency to gravitate towards the shiny object. So how do you, and I'm sure you have a billion ideas in your mind that you would love to do, there's not enough hours in the day, how do you keep yourself, from going off on all these tangents, and how do you stay grounded and know where to put your time and where not to put your time?
I guess for those of you that are entrepreneurial minded, I don't think you ever stop thinking about the next thing. Actually, I do it for fun. My wife and I are going on vacation, and I'll end up spending hours thinking about this business idea and something I want to start, knowing that it'll never get off the ground. That's just who I am. If my team was here, I'd tell them because they'll kill me. That's literal. In a lot of our team meetings, there's a lot of different things that I want to do, and there's people that keep you grounded. I'm also older now, and I realize that I can't work myself into the ground, and you do have to focus. So I think at some point, if you don't focus and concentrate, you're probably not going to be successful. And if I look back to my early days, I was very successful in certain things, and then I started a restaurant and a construction company and a bunch of other things, and worked 80 hours a week and lost a shit ton of money and made a bunch of money. And today I want to focus on, some things and be successful. But all in all, you learn over time.
And now you've got a family in the mix, and that's probably changed your perception. You've just within the last year, right, that you've had a baby. So, and then you also have a wife that has sort of the same spirit that you do. She's an entrepreneur. So, how has kind of having family and newborn and all that kind of changed your perspective on things?
Probably don't need to say much for those that are parents. For those that aren't parents, awesome, right? And she helps me. She was here earlier. Steve Case held her up recently. Hopefully, she'll be an entrepreneur someday. I don't know. She helps create focus. She's also a good excuse for me on boards. I can't do this board because I got to be with my family, which is true. Everything about being a parent is incredible. I love being a dad, and it's awesome.
All right, so that's all that I've got for you. If you don't mind, I can open it up for maybe 2 or 3 from the audience to see if anybody has a hot seat question for Jason, something you've been waiting to drill him on, or give him a lob of a softball question. Yes, sir. You might have to speak loudly, or you can walk up here and I can hand this to you so everybody can hear it.
Hi. First of all, great job. So in Philadelphia, Boston, Austin, the Valley, there's a lot of co-working centers just like yours, but they don't actually charge the entrepreneurs. They let them co-work, they let them have office spaces, and they're not paying a dime. So instead of taking, say, from a company, I'll name Vaporware, at their beginning, instead of taking $1,000 a month from them, they let them put that $1,000 a month back into their own projects. Talk about how you created that business model for HQ where you're taking rent from startup companies?
I think we're providing a ton of value, and the market's going to tell us if people aren't interested in being a part of the community. We don't take any government funding or anything like that. So, if people don't want to be a part of HQ, they probably won't. I got a pretty large waiting list.
All right, anybody else? Question? Don't knock people over while you're, jeez. Man, that's why people don't vote for politics.
So what's it like being a B Corp, and how is that kind of like affected, how HQ Raleigh's run and how, versus like a regular corporation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's part of our core values. I mean, if you speak with our team and the founders, it's a big deal to us, to work in a way where we're sustainable and we're understanding the impact of our community and those sorts of things. So it's definitely ingrained in the way that we select companies and we operate ourselves. We don't push it on people. We show through example that being a B Corp is a healthy way to be a company. Anymore, at the click of a finger, people know what your company is doing, how they operate, what your culture is all about. And many of those people probably won't invest in you if they don't align with your values. And especially the millennials, I think a lot of people align themselves with B Corp ideals, right? And so I think it's awesome. I think it would be different if people came in and said, you have to be a B Corp, We're showing them that the glass is half full. This is a way to operate. We won't even be talking about this in 10 years, frankly. Most companies are just going to incorporate those things into their daily practices. And a lot of the companies and the big players, like Pendo is one of the rock star companies, in our community. They're a B Corp. Obviously we have 7th generation within our company, and they've got a $40 million fund, and they've invested in several companies. So, it's like, people are making their own choices, but we're offering them advice and giving them connections on how to do that.
One more? Got time for maybe one more? Yep.
So, question for you. I'm just recently finding out, CEO and co-founder of a company that's AU Raleigh, right? So, and unfortunately, we're vacating like everyone else. What's the solution in Raleigh? We don't want to leave Raleigh. None of us live in Durham. We don't live in Chapel Hill. HQ, what's the plans for growth, and what can you do to help us in maybe this transition period right now? Absolutely.
The first thing I want to say, and I'm glad you brought that up, Adam Klein called me yesterday. He's with American Underground. It's obvious that we're competitors. It says a lot about our community that Adam gives me a call and says, hey, we're changing tact a little bit. We're going to do something different with that space. I've got a group of companies. You're the first person I'm calling. Can you take any of these companies? It's pretty cool. It's back to this idea of collaboration and realizing that rising tide floats all boats, right? To your point, I'm on it, man. The problem is we're full, but we do have some relationships in the community, and I've got some turnover. So the long-term solution, we're developing our building to accommodate the demand that we have in Raleigh, and we want to still create that flexible, affordable lease space. I think one of the problems that we're trying to solve is that once you leave these co-working spaces, where do you go? You've got to sign these 5 and 7 year leases. With our new building, we're trying to provide that flexible and affordability for larger companies. In the interim, I've got 2 meetings this week with developers who really get what we're doing, and I'm trying to create these like in-between spaces where we can accommodate groups like yours. So get in contact with me if you haven't already. You're on my radar, and there is some opportunities, whether it's in with our space and some shifting around, or someone I can connect you with that understands what we're trying to accomplish. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. Everybody, can you give him a round of applause?